Hello, in this video we're going to discuss Medicine Part 8, how to heal a patient of everything. So, everything is possible to be healed, and we'll just discuss how to go about it and what is involved. So we'll look at injuries and other forms of problems and how they're fixed. So in the case of the body, if a limb's missing, how would we fix it? So there's more than one way to fix a missing limb. DNA code is one, and it makes the missing limb grow back. A second way is mana biscuit. So mana biscuit will also make the missing limb get refilled. But with mana biscuit, it'll do something else. So the bodies on Earth, if they're below 6'4", the soul chassis is not completely filled. So what would happen if a person had a mana biscuit here on Earth who was 5 foot? The second they consume it, the soul chassis gets completely filled. And so what happens is the body is completely filled, and the person would wind up 6'4" or taller. So that's another thing about the environment. Because of the environment and other influences, the bodies are actually shorter than they should be. So a missing limb would use DNA code or mana biscuit. Sickness. So for all kinds of diseases, what should we be using? Penicillin, antibiotics. Alright, so Ebola, penicillin, antibiotics. If you're not using it, then you should be going to prison. Alright, we're thorough, we find out, we go, there's a whole bunch of people here with Ebola. Why aren't they getting healed? Are the doctors using penicillin or antibiotics? Alright, and you wonder where these sicknesses come from. It comes from Wiccans and witches, and they visit those locations and inject people with Ebola or more recently coronavirus. And that's how those come about. We don't deliver a virus in order to kill off the population, and it does not happen by accident. Viruses don't happen by accident. They happen because someone has taken it and injected it in someone. So when we have a measles outbreak, where does it come from? Wiccans and witches using a syringe. Alright, so in the future we'll catch these offenders, and that will become zero. It'll just cease happening. 150 years from now, you look back and go, so way back then, we used to have measles outbreaks and Ebola and coronavirus. Corona is Ebola, by the way. And now we do not. It's because the offenders all got caught. So other ways to heal a person of sickness, including cancer, is DNA code. Mana biscuit also does it. It'll heal you straight away of sickness. So say a person is born with a birth defect. How do we fix it? Like a person who's intellectually handicapped. What happened there? There's two ways in which a person is born with a chassis that has suffered brain damage. One way, well actually there's three. One way is a complication during birth, where there's oxygen is blocked from reaching the brain temporarily. That's one way. The second way is in the environment. The mother has come into contact with a chemical which influences the body to create brain damage. The third way is a witch or Wiccan or Freemason with a syringe. They also deliberately induce labour to make smaller babies. If you come across a small baby that's tiny, it's because a witch or Wiccan or Freemason has induced labour by using a chemical. That exact chemical is what farmers use on cows to force them to induce labour to give birth to calves. So that's where that stuff comes from and why it happens. It doesn't happen by accident. The body does not want to give birth to the baby until it's ready. So some nasty person has forced it to happen. So there's a lot of deliberate illnesses caused by witches, Wiccans and Freemasons, and they earn money from doing it and favour. And that's what's actually happening. So cancer can be healed with DNA code and also mana biscuit. We also have a third one, which is water mixed with mana, which is holy water. So the soul chassis, if it gets damaged, how do you heal it? Okay, so God suffered soul chassis damage from creating a star. He got immersed in the fuel for the star, and he managed to get back to his work site and inside his chamber, and had to clean off all the chemical that he'd been immersed in, and it burned his soul chassis. So in order to heal it, he had to go through a process where he had his soul refilled with the body, because working on planets he's in soul form, and then in a body he would consume mana biscuit and ice, which is all he could eat back then, and it took 14 weeks to get healed completely of the burns. So the soul chassis is very fragile. It's very easily killed. It's only 0.005 of a gram. It's translucent. You can see through it. If you look at God in soul form, you'd see that in his skull is a fragment of that glows green. That's a fragment of gravity element. So God, Jesus, and their descendants all have that same gravity element fragment in their skull. And so they're slightly different to humankind and angels with the fragment, but it allows them to emit gravity from their hands. In God's case, in space and soul form, he can move very, very slowly by emitting gravity from his palms. So that's the difference between God, Jesus, and their descendants, and humankind and angels. So humankind and angels are the same. The super Arkangel chassis is very similar to God's chassis, and has the same capabilities in soul form. So that's how you heal a soul of damage. So a lot of people claim they have a problem with their soul. They don't. So your souls aren't located on earth. They're in heaven in a stasis chamber, and it's connected through wormhole telepathy to the body on earth. And so when you have a amputee and they say they can still feel their arm or their leg, that is because their soul chassis still has an arm or a leg. So psychology, you have to remove everything and start again. A lot of people are going to go to prison because how they've been practicing and doing things is completely wrong. All right. So with that, back to the drawing board. Might need a new generation of psychologists, and they'll be taught there are only two things wrong with a person: post-traumatic stress and unhappiness, and that's it. This schizophrenia thing is where a person who's a victim has a handler who's an offender who tells them what to do. And in the case of them being interviewed by a psychologist, often the psychologist is in on it and observes the interaction between the patient and the offender and does nothing. All right? So we're watching you, and you'll be going to prison for doing it. All right? You better have a good explanation. In the future, you'll find that medicine is going to be even better. And we'll cover that in a future video. I am the Archangel Daniel, and I'm from heaven.